All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Tuesday Tips Live. My name is Joey Santos. I am the managing editor for Digital DJ Tips, and I know what you're thinking. Why isn't Phil doing this week's Tuesday Tips Live? Well, I'm filling in for him because he is currently in Amsterdam on business. And I promised that I would help him out while he's over there. And he's really, really busy right now. So I just want to say hi to everybody who is just joining us over on the Global DJ Network. What is up, everybody who's in there? And if you guys don't know what that is, it's the world's largest, it's about to be the world's largest group for DJs all around the Facebook space. So if you want to join that, I'm going to give you the instructions later on at the end of this live stream. I also want to say hi to everybody who is joining us over on the Digital DJ Tips Facebook page. What is up, you guys? So nice to see you once again. And also everybody who is joining us on YouTube. What is up? Subajit is in there already. First to comment, he says, good afternoon, good morning. How are you, dude? So nice for all of you to join me this week. And we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to all of our digital DJ hearts. It's going to be about iTunes. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. But first, just a bit of an introduction to me. If you guys still don't know who I am, as I mentioned, I'm the managing editor for Digital DJ Tips. I make a ton of content for the website. I do the news, I do the reviews, I write stuff for the course and also for a Facebook page. And basically, I teach the dance music formula course, which teaches DJs how to make dance music. I am also the tutor for Record Box Made Easy, Virtual DJ Made Easy, and a bunch of other courses that we sell over on the Digital DJ Tips site. And yes, I do make those video reviews, all those slick, crispy gear reviews that you see over on the Digital DJ Tips YouTube page. Now, do me a favor. Please share this video right now on your Facebook walls, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please tweet this out or even share it again on your social media channels, because we're going to be talking about something that could potentially change the way that we organize our music. And also, it's a sign of things to come as regards music for DJs, whether it's going to be, DJ downloads or music streaming, that kind of thing. We're going to be talking about that in this live stream. And as I mentioned, yes, this is live, so it comes with all of the words and stuff. Maybe we'll get some technical glitches later on. Who knows? But yes, this is a live show. So you're probably wondering, hey, why isn't this like a normal Digital DJ Tips video that, it's just like 3 or 5 minutes where you just get to the point? Well, this is a half-hour show, and Phil is usually the one who hosts this, and I'm taking over for this week. I usually do the Instagram version of this, and I'll probably be doing that right after this live stream. So yes, 30 minutes, half-hour show, and please type in your comments. I will be able to read them out, and actually I'm going to do that right now. So got my trusty iPad over here. Let's take a look at what you guys have been saying. I want to say hi to Nikki Broom, saying hi, Phil and the crew. Taurus is in here. Joe Santos, DJ Stargazer. We have the same name. Hello, Digital DJ Tips. Wondering what you have to say about iTunes, which I never used anyway. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that later on. Graci, how about the music people bought through this? Do they lose it all? We're going to be talking about that. And spoiler alert, you're not going to lose any music, okay? Giuseppe says hello. Subajit says hello. Jurgen Kratik saying hello. Shane Percival, I don't like iTunes. Good riddance. Well, I think you're going to like the news that we're going to be talking about today. Cam Scott says, can you turn up the mic? Hey, I will do just that, dude. Give me 1 second. All right. So if the audio is a lot better for you guys, let me know in the comments, and I'll also try speaking a little bit louder, just so I can compensate for the volume. Steve G says hello from Canada, and iTunes sucks. Okay, sound is low, can hardly hear you. All right, here we are. Cam says, yeah, nice. The audio is now good. As I mentioned, it's a live show, so there we are. A little bit louder. Okay. Let me just turn it up just a tiny little bit for you guys. All right, so let me go to my console setting over here and I will turn up the volume. Louder, louder, louder. Hope this is better for you guys. Can you hear me better now? There we are. Let me know in the comments if the sound is good. Audio is sorted. Okay, so I guess I have to say all the stuff that I mentioned earlier, right? Well, again, hi to everybody on the Global DJ Network. If you want to know how to join that, I'm going to give you the instructions later on in this live stream. Hi to everybody who is joining us over on the Digital DJ Tips Facebook page, and also everybody who is on YouTube. We are simulcast worldwide on all of these streaming platforms. It's so 21st century. I love it. And again, we're going to be talking about iTunes. So, I want to know who stayed up last night or who tuned in during the WWDC conference over on the Apple page. Hands up, let me know in the comments if you did, because I'm currently in Manila, so that was around 1 a.m. my time, and I stayed up because there were just like a ton of great new announcements from the company. And WWDC, for those of you who don't know, this is more, it's geared towards the developers, people who code, and folks who make apps for the iOS platform, right? But last night, Apple made a couple of awesome hardware announcements. And the first one is the new Mac Pro. And really, I've been jonesing for a Mac Pro ever since, but I don't want one that looks like a trash can. And the new one that was introduced last night, it was a throwback to the Mac Pro that looked like a cheese grater. And I think it's great, but at the same time, it's also really expensive. I think it comes out at around $1,200 if you buy like the most basic setup, which is the computer itself plus the screen. And yeah, I don't have like $12,000 to buy a computer. So maybe I'm gonna wait for like the next version or something. But it's awesome for all of you video professionals out there, for those of you who make 3D graphics and all that thing. And apart from that, they also made a mention of updates to Mac OS, which is the operating system for MacBooks and iMacs and Mac Pros, as well as updates to iOS 13, and iPad OS. And I'm sure they're gonna have like some new developments when it comes to using DJ apps and all of those platforms. But one that really stuck out for a lot of us, and something that we've been talking about for a while now, is Apple's plan to discontinue iTunes, and they just made it official last night. Basically, Craig, who is the vice president of Apple, went up on stage and said something like, "We've been listening to all of you guys give us feedback about iTunes, and we decided to make some changes." And he did like a little comedy routine. He said, "We're gonna add, the ability to view your calendar over in iTunes. We're gonna have the ability to send emojis, memojis, and your messages and all that." And everyone was laughing because, of course, basically everyone in the world complains about iTunes being super bloated, right? So what Craig did was basically said, "It's just a joke. Here's what we're really doing. We're turning iTunes into three distinct apps. It's gonna be music, podcasts, and TV." So we're going to be focusing on music. And really, I think it's awesome because it just brings back iTunes, the app, to what it really does well, initially at least. And that is to manage music. If you guys remember, back in the year 2001, the first iPod was introduced along with iTunes. And it was a way for you to transfer your music from your computer over onto your iPod. And that's the only thing it did. All it did was transfer music. And it was great for that. People loved it. And in 2003, the iTunes Store was launched, and that basically killed piracy, or it played a big part in eliminating piracy. And that's why you don't see a lot of like pirate sites around anymore, because back in 2003, Steve Jobs basically said, "Okay, we're going to give people a really easy way to buy music, and it's going to be 99 cents per song." And that was when the iTunes Store was born. And that was all well and good. But when the iPhone came out in 2007, suddenly we had this device. This is not the original iPhone, but suddenly we had a device that could do so many different things. It could play your music, it could make calls, and it could also surf the internet, right? And Apple slowly added features over onto the iTunes app. So apart from managing music, now you could sync videos, you could sync photos. Eventually, you could also add podcasts. You could transfer files This was like in the late 2010s. In the late 2010s, you could start transferring files. You could back up your phone and all that stuff. So basically, iTunes became like it was like this multimedia manager that just became so clunky and unwieldy. And it's just, it was so hard to use. And while I've been using iTunes for a really long time, I just kept pining for the good old days when iTunes did nothing but manage music. And it seems that after last night's announcement, that is going to come true. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here it is. Here's a screenshot. And this is what the new music app looks like. So yes, it's still pretty similar to iTunes, but you're gonna notice that over on the top of your screen, you no longer have those multimedia tabs. This is generally where you would be able to access stuff like, movies, books, podcasts, and all that stuff. Now it's just super clean. And over here on the left side, on the sidebar, you just have a couple of categories there. The first one is Apple Music, and you've got For You, which is currently highlighted. You've got Browse as well as Radio. So these let you tune into your Apple Music account, which is the streaming service of Apple. And then below that, you've got Library. Now, this is for all the local music on your hard drive. So you've got stuff in there like, your songs, artists, categories, recently played, that kind of thing. And below that, you've got playlists. So these are all the playlists that you've created, and you'll be able to access them over here on the left. So what do you guys think of this current design for music? Let me know in the comments. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh my God, it's a bit of a throwback. It's a high resolution throwback of what iTunes was back in the day. And I think it's awesome. It's a nice, clean interface. But again, let me know what you think in the comments. So I'm going to go to my iPad over here, and I'm going to start reading them out. Here we are. Scott Watson, that's what I want to hear about. I'm going to get a new laptop for Tractor. I hate Mac, closed ecosystem. He's talking about Apple as software. But you're right, it turned into a monster. I agree, and it seems that Apple basically did the unbundling with this current music app and just made it super simple and streamlined. What else is in here? Andy CH, it still makes me low when Serato DJ is programs on a piece of fruit, aka Apple. And now they're making you use 3 apps when the one will do and still can't get it right. Well, I don't know. I think when you've got something like this, something that is very simple and something that you can use to just manage your music, and then you can open it in whatever DJ app that you're using, it's just simplified in a way. And yeah, I do like making playlists within my own DJ software. I'm a Record Box DJ user, so I make playlists within DJ software, but it's more for playlists that I'm going to be using on the spot. Let's say I make a requests playlist when I'm playing a wedding. I'll make that within Record Box DJ, and I can just populate that with songs that I receive or requests that I receive over the night. But when it comes to just like, deep diving and spending a lot of time creating playlists and creating playlist folders and even smart playlists, I really like iTunes for that. And again, like a lot of you are, I was disappointed when it just started becoming this bloated piece of software. So when this new music app was announced, I was just really excited about it. And it just, again, it really takes me back to just how simple things were. And again, Apple was really good at making things that is straightforward and streamlined. And I think this is a return to that sort of Steve Jobsian ethos or philosophy when it comes to creating products. What else is in here? Angela Carr says, quote unquote, the good old days. I think he must have been dreaming. Don't say that. I don't think so. Who else is in here? Tweak and Track says, I purchase all my music from Beatport. Scott says, Apple is a day late when it comes to this. Cam Scott asks, how long will it take to phase out iTunes? That is a very good question, and something that Apple has not made a comment on just yet. Although we have received some reports, actually, if you check out digitaldjtips.com, I wrote an article there all about how iTunes is going to remain the same for Windows PC, at least for the time being. So yes, the music app seems to only be a Mac OS experience. And it depends on how you look at it, for better or worse. If you like iTunes the way it is, if you're a Windows user, well, it's gonna stay the same. If you hate it and you want it to be like a little bit more streamlined, like the current music app, you may have to wait a little bit longer for the music app to arrive on Windows. Um, okay, so Tweakin' Tracks. Do you personally buy your music through iTunes? Tweakin' Tracks, yes, I do. And it's a mix actually. I buy more of my pop stuff over on iTunes, especially the stuff that I use if I'm going to be making like a mix or like a podcast episode. I do that over on iTunes. However, if it's more of the house or the techno side of things, usually I go to Beatport. And yes, I'm also part of record pools like DJ City and BPM Supreme, which is always awesome. And that's where I get most of my music from. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at a couple more screenshots of the new music app. So this is Craig unveiling it yesterday over in WWDC. So again, you've got that streamlined interface, not a lot of clutter over on the top, something that looks very, very simple, and yeah, kind of liking it. And here's another screenshot. This time, this is from 9 to 5 Mac, who leaked this photo a couple of days ago, sometime last week actually. And you can take a closer view over on the folder trees over on the left. Again, you've got Apple Music in there, you've got library for your local songs, and you've got playlists. Now I know what you're saying. Okay, cool. So Apple Music is in there, my local music is in there, my playlists are in there. What about the iTunes store? How do I get on the iTunes store? All right, so we got some news as well. Let me just go through my news reports over here on my news desk. And basically what they said was Apple mentioned that the iTunes Store is going to appear over on that sidebar as well. I'm not sure where, if it's going to be below Apple Music or above the Apple Music folder, but it will definitely be there according to the sources. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, again, head on over to digitaldjtips.com. I wrote a full article about it. Yeah, you can check all the sources in there for where I got those news. So yeah, basically the iTunes Store will remain open. And I know like last year there were rumblings and rumors of Apple shutting down the iTunes Store, but apparently they're not going to be doing anything about it, at least not yet, or they didn't mention anything about it. There wasn't even a mention of the iTunes Store yesterday, which is kind of curious, but it goes to show where Apple's priorities lie as regards music, and that is in music streaming. And we've been saying this a lot over in Digital DJ Tips for like the last probably 2-3 years. Music streaming is going to be the future for DJing. Music downloads are still here, and we think they're going to stick around for at least a little while longer. But in terms of convenience, we really think that music streaming is going to be the way to go, especially after you have companies like Denon DJ making the announcement that their hardware will be compatible with music streaming services. You're going to be able to stream stuff straight from those piece of kit, and we're just waiting on another big company. Maybe Pioneer will come up with like a CDJ or an all-in-one standalone player in the future that will be able to connect via Wi-Fi, and you'll be able to access Beatport Link or Beatport Source or some other music streaming site. And I think that's going to be awesome, right? So let me know what you guys think over in the comments. We're talking about iTunes and iTunes being dead, at least being replaced by a new streamlined app called Music. So let me know. I've got 3 things that I want to talk about why iTunes dying is actually a good thing. Number 1, and I've been saying this a lot during this live stream, the new music app is just a lot simpler, you know. It's no longer this multi-purpose tool, I guess, that lets you do like a bunch of different things. Now it just does one thing really, really well. Again, a throwback to like the classic iTunes of yore when it was first introduced in the early 2000s. It kind of reminded me of why I made the shift from using an old music management app like Winamp. Hands up if you guys remember what Winamp is, as well as Music Match Jukebox, just like really, really old school music management apps that I don't think exist anymore. Well, apart from Winamp, because apparently there's like a new version of it that's out. But yeah, it's just got back to just being something that is a lot simpler and a lot easier to use, and there's just less clutter. I also like that it is focused on one thing. You don't have like these annoying pop-ups anymore. I mean, I really hate it. Like whenever I plug my phone into my computer and then suddenly like iTunes opens automatically and it tells me that I need to sync it up or back it up or something like that. And that's, it's pretty annoying. And last night at the conference, Craig, the VP, did say that they were no longer going to be doing that with the new music app. You're going to be doing all your syncing from within Finder. But again, this is something that is for Mac users only at the moment. No news yet whether this will come to the PC. Again, iTunes will exist on Windows, will continue to exist on Windows, at least for the time being. Now, finally, the third thing that I really like about this new development in the app is that by using this music app, you still have access to Apple Music. So all of your music streaming needs are there if you are an Apple Music subscriber. And also, you still got access to the iTunes Store, or apparently, you have access to the iTunes Store. We'll really know the true score when the app starts to roll out at the end of the month, because that is when the latest Mac OS Catalina, will begin deploying. So we'll let you know a little bit more about that when that happens. And also, for all of you Mac users who are curious as to how this will affect your DJing, we're going to come up with like a bunch of tutorials as well as articles on how to do just that. So before I go any further, let's take a look at the comments once again. Scott Watson says he uses Spotify streaming and not Apple Music. That's all right. I kind of use both because I run a record label here in the Philippines. It's called Wide Eyed Records. And you'd be surprised at just how different the listening demographics are for Spotify and for Apple Music. So I need to keep track of both. And yes, I do like Spotify more because I like the interface a whole lot more. But when it comes to Apple Music, they have different types of playlists on there. I also like the personal, the human curated content over in there, as well as like the radio shows. So that's why I have both. Tweaking Tracks, I use Beatport because your rights as a DJ using music purchased from them is protected. That's awesome. Joey McIsaac is asking, will the new iTunes still work with Tractor, Serato, etc.? Okay, Joey, there have been no announcements yet from DJ companies, but we are expecting them to be able to work with the new music app, just because it's going to be the way that Mac users manage their music libraries moving forward. And another question that is related to that would be, will you be able to access your iTunes library from the new music app? Again, no official announcements yet, but we are expecting it to be able to be imported over onto the new music app. So no need to worry right there. Alvin Otero, will this come to Windows as well? iTunes on Windows is a total memory hog and all around unoptimized to oblivion. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, iTunes will continue to exist on Windows, and the music app won't be available to Windows users just yet. But maybe at some point in the future, it will be ported over onto the Windows PCs. So again, just stay stuck, and we will give you updates over on the website as soon as that happens. LBiz got scared of iTunes after hearing about iTunes Match messing with libraries. Will this resolve this? I know what you're saying, dude, and I did have some trouble with that in the past as well. And hopefully, we won't have any of those problems with the new music app, because that was a real pain in the butt. Scott Watson, do any of you use a record pool for acapellas? Well, I think the best pool, in my opinion, for acapellas is BPM Supreme. They've got just like a huge selection there, especially if you're more on the pop side. I don't know of any other acapella site apart from that, and you could probably purchase them on Beatport if you like, but really BPM Supreme for me is like a really great place to get that. What's in here? Suave6565. I use Beatport for music, but podcasts is not there. Yeah, I think for podcasts, you can either use Stitcher, which is something I really like, and you can also try Spotify. For all of you who listen to like a lot of podcasts, by the way, you could try using an app called Overcast. It has a neat feature called like Smart Speed or something, and basically it removes all the little gaps in between speech and talking, so it lets you consume the podcast content a lot faster. It's really awesome. Overcast, check it out, you guys. Who else is here? Scott Watson, does music have a subscription streaming service? Yes, it will still have Apple Music baked in, and you can still access uh, Apple Music in there. Um, Scott Watson asks, how about Audio Galaxy? Dude, that is so classic. Audio Galaxy, SoulSeek, LimeWire, Napster. Those are like the peer-to-peer file sharing sites back in the day. So old school. Kevin Brown, will we still be able to rip CDs using this new system? I'm not so sure about that, dude. But maybe they will. I don't have like a built-in CD player on my laptop anymore or in my iMac. But I don't see why Apple would not include that feature. Um, Here we go. By the way, I have that tweet here. Let me just show you guys. This is from Mika Singleton, and she is part of Billboard, the magazine, and basically, Apple told her that iTunes will continue to exist in its current state on Windows, and that the iTunes Music Store will be available in the sidebar in the Music app. She corrected her typo there at the bottom of that tweet. So there you go. Guys, let me know in the comments if you have any questions about iTunes or Apple Music, or if you've got other DJ related questions that you want me to answer. Go ahead and do that. We have a couple more minutes together. So, once again, if you are just tuning in, this is Tuesday Tips Live. This is where we talk about stuff related to DJing in a half-hour show. We've got like around 5 more minutes to go. So go ahead and ask your questions and I will try to answer them. For those of you who would like to join the Global DJ Network, it is so easy. All you need to do is to fire up Facebook, go to the Digital DJ Tips Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Digital DJ Tips. Click on the message box and type the word join. Then hit enter, and then you're going to be added over onto the Global DJ Network. It's where we talk about stuff like this all the time, and you can connect with other like-minded DJs. Really awesome place to be. And if you are not a part of the Facebook page for Digital DJ Tips, what are you doing? Go ahead and join facebook.com/Digital DJ Tips and click on join. And for those of us watching on YouTube, please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com, and just type Digital DJ Tips on the search box and click subscribe. So, let's go on to the comments. Sean Peters, great info, Joey. Seems like the new music app keeps the good parts of iTunes and throws out the rest. Hopefully, it will allow third-party apps to read playlists. You mean .m3u files, right? I've always found it really handy to keep my playlists on iTunes so that I can use them on multiple DJ applications and also take them with me on my phone. Yeah, that's a really good comment, Sean. And actually, this is the only reason why I'm able to DJ using just about any platform. I wrote on the site sometime last year that I visited the beach on summer vacation and I took along my iPad, and I was supposed to just like spend a weekend there, just chill out, hang by the shore and stuff. And then like a couple of friends saw me there and they were like, hey, you should like DJ tonight. And, you know, it'll be fun. Like, we've got like a couple of people in here too. Maybe it'll be like a nice little party. And I'm like, I don't have any gear. And then that's when I remembered, oh, okay, I have most of my music, or at least like 99% of my music, over in my iTunes. And they're all synced to my iPad. So I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually play using just my iPad. So I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I went to the bar, beachside bar, set this up, plugged it in. I just had like a splitter cable, plugged it in, and I started DJing using DJ Pro by Algorithm, and it went off without a hitch. It was pretty awesome, actually. And, you know, it wasn't just like the small party. It turned out into like this small festival level type set, a couple of hundred people in there jumping up and down. It was awesome, and that was so spur of the moment. And I don't think I would have been able to do that had I not been organizing my music diligently using iTunes and syncing them across my devices. So that definitely is one of the advantages of going to the iTunes route and now through the music route or the music app route. And I know like a lot of you are saying that, yeah, but like it's such a hassle to have to do all the organizing in iTunes, and then I open like a DJ app, and then I have to do some organizing there as well. But I really do think that it is worth the hassle and a bit of the extra work, just because the iTunes app itself is just really good at being able to organize stuff and seeing everything all at the same time. But yeah, it is a bit of a hassle because of all the other multimedia options that you're able to access from within that app. But now with this new music application, that's gone, and that's a thing of the past, and it's like a bright new start for the music app, which is awesome. So yes, soon as that drops, we're gonna have some tutorials for it. We're gonna have a review of it, and you're gonna get all of the usual content, all about it over on the Digital DJ Tips site. Okay. Edward Hines, if you want to use all of the old features, best thing to do is not upgrade. Yep, that is also true. I think I remember like taking a look at one of my friend's laptops like a few years back, and he was still using like iTunes 10, and I was like, "Why are you still on this?" And he's like, I just don't like the look of like the latest iTunes. I think it's like iTunes 12, right? I just don't like the latest look. And I'm like, okay, whatever works, dude. And the cool thing is that he was still able to access that version of iTunes over in his DJ software. So no harm, no foul, right? Edward Hines says, I still rip CDs every now and then. Yeah, well, hopefully the CD ripping feature will be included over the new music app. Eric Martin, I use smart playlists in iTunes for my Serato. I hope that will still work. Yes, all indications point to that still working over in the new music app. Matthew Armson, streaming, especially in the mobile DJ world of weddings, has gotten a negative connotation. I don't know why, but most couples specifically ask me not to stream any songs. I don't know why that is. I fear that Apple is moving towards streaming versus owning, but cellular technology isn't fast enough to rely solely on streaming. Okay, so two things to unpack in that comment, dude. First up, I'm not so sure why most couples ask you not to stream any songs. For the weddings that I've done this year and the last year, it doesn't matter for them as long as the song gets played and I drop them elegantly, meaning it just that it's not like bad beat matching and there are no gaps in between songs. Maybe what they mean by not streaming songs is plugging your iPhone over into your mixer and then just going on Spotify and clicking play or something like that. I think it's also worth educating couples that with streaming, you're soon going to be able to stream from within the DJ app itself, and there won't be any difference. They won't know any difference. It will still be like you're DJing as if you had the actual songs, right? Again, as long as you have an internet connection that is speedy and strong enough. And that leads me over onto the second point of your comment, which is cellular technology isn't fast enough to rely solely on streaming. Okay, so that is true in a way. First up, if you are in a place that doesn't have good 4G or LTE, yes, you will have problems. If you're on a 3G connection, yes, it may take a little bit longer to buffer. Or if the cellular signal inside the venue isn't up to snuff, or it's just really poor, yes, you may have some problems, in which case you may want to check if like the venue has a good Wi-Fi connection. The second thing that I want to talk about is the upcoming 5G spec. Now, 5G is coming sooner than expected, and it's just right around the corner. I know that there's a lot of hullabaloo regarding regulations and like the whole Huawei thing blowing up just a couple of weeks back. And I know that Huawei is one of the major key players when it comes to installing 5G connectivity in most of the Western world and in parts of Asia as well. But I think that 5G is going to happen. It's going to come sooner than expected. And it's just going to bring so much faster connectivity to all of us. And I'm not so sure like whose tweet I saw, but basically it was like a speed test. It was like a screenshot of a phone with a speed test, and I think like the download speed was like at 100 gigabytes per second or like 1,000 gigabytes, something ridiculous like that. So that's how fast and that's how large the bandwidth of 5G will be, and that could really change the way that we download and stream music while we're DJing. So it's too early to tell right now, but once that infrastructure is in place, then we'll be able to see the efficacy of being able to stream from within your DJ hardware or within the DJ software. So there you go. Tweaking Track says 5G is going to be a mess for a while. No doubt about that. Currently, it is already a mess because, again, there are a lot of regulation concerns over in the States as well as in Europe, but that is coming at some point. If not 5G as we know it, some version of it will be released, and that is what's going to be the next spec for a lot of mobile devices, right? Derek Rudolph, with iTunes being pretty much moving on to streaming, is it best to have a DJ record pool? Yes, it still is a great idea to have a DJ record pool. Want to know why? Here is the main reason why. There are exclusives that you are only able to get on certain record pools. For example, DJ City has a lot of reggaeton and Moomba edits as well as mashups and stuff that you can only get on that record pool. They're not available anywhere else. They are record pool exclusive. Another great example is BPM Supreme. They have exclusive BPM Supreme bootlegs. They got BPM Supreme mashups and remixes that you can only get on that pool. Another one, if you need yet another example, Direct Music Service has great exclusives courtesy of some of the best DJ producers in the States, including Jason Jana. He's like one of the top, if not the top marquee event DJ. He does like remixes on the regular and they are so awesome. You're not going to find them anywhere else. So yes, even though we're moving towards a more streaming environment, I think record pools will still offer downloads. And that's why it's still a good reason to join a record pool because again, you won't be able to get those exclusives anywhere else. So yes, if you want to know, Derek, which record pools to join, I just named 3 of the best there: BPM Supreme, DJ City, and Direct Music Service, DMS. Okay, Matthew says thank you for joining, dude. P.TV is in here. What's up, P. How are you? And finally, Norman Durbridge. Hello from Montreal. What's up, Norman? All right, so thank you, everybody, for joining me on this week's Tuesday Tips Live. That's it for a half hour talking about iTunes and also Apple Music and stuff. So thank you once again. And before I end this, I just want to address this final comment that just came in over in YouTube. This is from Cam Scott, basically saying that, let me just pull up the chat app over here. Open in the browser. Yeah, as I mentioned, lots of talk going on about 5G right now and whether or not it could be something that is potentially dangerous. Oh, well, I can't access the the chat box anymore. But anyway, Cam, yes, I agree that research needs to be done on whether 5G is actually safe or not. And I'm sure that all of the watchdogs that are dedicated to making sure that technology is safe will be on it. And I guess that's also one of the reasons why people are still kind of holding on and a little bit wary about the technology. But I think it's a good one to have, at least for now, by the looks of it. So yeah, we'll see. Now, again, thank you for joining this week's Tuesday Tips Live. I'm filling in for Phil this week because he's in Amsterdam. Thank you to everybody who's joining us on the Global DJ Network, as well as those of you joining us from the Facebook page of Digital DJ Tips, as well as on YouTube. My name is Joey Santos. I will see you once again next week for another Tuesday Tips Live. Bye-bye.